evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very special edition of Frankly Speaking that I have Raksha Mantri Nirmala Sitharaman joining me on. Thank you very much, Raksha Mantri, for joining me on Frankly Speaking. And this is a special edition in the new year that we are bringing to our viewers because many have asked you questions on the Rafale deal. There have been questions that have been raised in Parliament. There have been questions that have been raised by politicians. But we felt that we would put you face to face with our viewers who want to ask their questions on what they think about the Rafale deal, which is why thank you very much for accepting our invitation, accepting my invitation to come here on Frankly Speaking to take on the questions that our viewers might want to ask. But before we get in our first callers, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, I want to ask you straight off the bat, do you think the debate is settled after your very combative speech in Parliament? The fact is that the opposition hasn't given way to any of the facts that you've put on the table. They're questioning all the facts even now, and more so, they are linking many developments since then which have happened in the courts, in the CBI, to what they call is the Rafale scam.
You're right. I've tried answering all the questions, point by point, not just in the Parliament, but even afterwards, but largely, exhaustively in the Parliament. Now, I've put the facts with the documents in my hand. After that, if people are raising questions, I wish they are questions which relate to, in the Augusta Westland, which you have covered extensively in your days, in prior to 14, I remember. And as a result, today a major investigation is on, and media's coverage then has resulted that India is able to get the truth behind what had happened in Augusta. But much to all our surprise, hasn't the same middleman who's now under scrutiny being questioned by investigative agencies also saying there was an attempt on Rafale too? So, post my answering with the facts and documents, the question should actually now be mounting before the Congress. Not just those questions which I have asked of them, whether it relates to HAL or anything else. Now, the question should also be, what is this man telling during the investigation related to Augusta? After all, he's mentioned the word Rafale. After all, that period relates to the UPA government. Shouldn't they now be answering that question also?
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, are you making a charge because there is a charge from the Congress party? Because many would say just because there is a controversy over Rafale and the contract that's been signed by the NDA government, by your government, you're now raking up the UPA era. Do you have any facts? Obviously, you're referring to middleman Christian Michel,
yes,
and what he's talked about him being a middleman even for another company which was a rival company to Rafale, which was the Eurofighter. You're in government and you've been in government for 4.5 years. If you had any inkling of this, why not put the facts on the table, and why not file FIRs if you do think there were middlemen who were trying to sabotage the earlier Rafale deal, as you say, in the UPA era?
Whether it was a sabotage or not is something which the Congress will have to be answering, because it's very well for you to say you are in the government, what are you doing about it? We are in the government and we understand the urgency with which we have to empower Indian Air Force, and therefore with a clean, transparent government to government agreement, Prime Minister took the initiative with all due process followed to get the aircrafts for Indian Air Force. So we are in government with national interest in mind, we've gone ahead with it. Now, if you're telling me we should also first of all clear up the backlog of indecision because there was some kind of a conspiracy, I don't know. But clearly, if I'd spent time on that, I'm wasting more time from getting the Indian Air Force a timely lot of fighter aircrafts. So the constructive approach is that we went ahead with getting the aircrafts for the Indian Air Force. Now, if as a fallout of what is coming out now, there is some reason to believe that there was some other reason for which the deal did not happen, the law will take its
So you think
course.
it's the Eurofighter reason? You think it's the Christian Michel?
Now, doesn't it raise these questions? You're rightly raising them.
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, this is a country of 135 crore people. They don't want questions from the two national political parties. They want answers.
The answer is given in the procurement of 36 Rafale aircrafts, 2 squadrons, so that the urgency is met. And the answer is given for the rest of it in that we've issued an RFI. So we are going about the business of getting Indian Air Force what they should be given legitimately, what they should have been given long time ago. UPA spent time without the deal. We are going ahead with constructive work.
So, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, Rahul Gandhi's raised questions, and these questions have been directed at the Prime Minister. The charge of the Congress party is that the Prime Minister is not answering any of these questions and therefore deduce that the Prime Minister has something to hide. What do you say to that argument?
It's become now, I do not want to use the word fashionable, but I don't want to waste time searching for a different word, but it's become now fashionable, and also probably it gives quite a few eyeballs for your claims to tag everything onto the Prime Minister. Yes, ultimately Prime Minister is responsible, but it doesn't seem to me reasonable for the opposition to have every question posed to the Prime Minister. And as a result, even much before, you saw it the other day. I'm not saying I'm standing up, how is it that you don't respect? No, I'm not saying that. But as per procedure, after a discussion, the concerned minister gets up to answer. You wanted the debate. The Congress wanted the debate. I stood up to answer as the concerned minister. Oh no, we want the Prime Minister. They said this for every such a thing which happened since 14, if you take it up. When the church attack happened, the Prime Minister should come. When there is a unfortunate attack on a Dalit in some state which may be ruled by the BJP or any other party, the Prime Minister should come. Fishermen unfortunately caught by, let's say, Sri Lanka, and they are not being sent back in time. Prime Minister is taking action on it, but even then, Prime Minister to come and answer. Sorry. Some member of parliament speaks out of turn, says something, Prime Minister should come and answer. I'm so glad that there's so much expectation and hope on the Prime Minister that they want him to give a comment. But is that the way to operate?
Is that the way to operate? We are getting our first caller on the show, and a majority of the calls that we are getting are asking the question, and these are some of the comments that we've got on Twitter as well, questions that have come in on why is the government so defensive about setting up a JPC, a Joint Parliamentary Committee. If you have nothing to hide, why not a JPC?
A JPC's history in the Parliament for any issue has been when you had institutions like the CAG coming up with some kind of a initial observation of the CAG itself, which merits a further investigation. And therefore, if you tell me that there is a need for a JPC based on something which has come out, yes, earlier the Parliament's history shows precedence of setting up a JPC. In this case, there's none, one. Second, once earlier, in the case of Bofors, which is what constantly Congress is having at the back of their mind, because they want to equate, bring in a false equivalence to Bofors and Rafale. The false equivalence drives them through the same process. So, if JPC was formed for Bofors investigation, there should be one for Rafale. JPC of Bofors, you know, and Finance Minister clearly said what was the fate of that. When by that time it was very clear the kickbacks were given, accounts were identified, money trail was spoken about, the JPC ended up saying the kickback which was given was not a kickback, it was a winding up charge. Now, do you want a farce like that? And therefore, one, and second, in this case, clearly, much before, whether the Congress party decided it that way or not, Supreme Court has gone through the case and looked at the three contentious issues on which the Congress wants to keep the issue alive. What were the three? On price, on process, and on the Indian offset partner. On all the three, the Supreme Court has come up with clear narration of what they found, and therefore clearly saying it's all okay. Now, for the Congress party then to say, but it doesn't stop us from forming a JPC. Supreme Court will never sit on whether a JPC should be formed or not. That is truly
so
a
you're saying it's completely
work.
political?
Absolutely political.
All right. So we have our first two callers calling in. Radha calling in from Bengaluru, Pratham calling in from Indore. And Radha and Pratham, thank you very much for calling us here on Frankly Speaking. We have the Raksha Mantri. Radha, would you like to take your first question with the Raksha Mantri? What do you want to ask?
Yes, ma'am. Madam, I am N. Radha from Bengaluru. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Madam Defence Minister, this is the first time India is having a female Defence Minister. How challenging is it to you to deal with external threats to our country from nations around us?
It is challenging, but I have the support of the entire Council of Ministers, good advisors in the NSA, National Security Advisor, to the Prime Minister, and the three armed forces chiefs, the Coast Guard. All of them are absolutely professional about dealing with the matters related to defense of the country. So I'm not at all alone, and in fact I'm in very good company.
Well, Radha, does that answer your question? Pratham, what's your question?
Namaste, Adharaniya Raksha Mantri ji.
Namaste.
My name is Pratham Agrawal Bakra and I am from Indore. And question is that even after buying Rafale aircraft, are we still underprepared for a war?
No, we will be. That is why instead of one squadron, we did get two squadrons. And there's a good lot of fleet of aircrafts which have been bought over the decades, which are in very good condition. All that was proven, not just because I'm saying it, but the Air Chief held last year something called Gagan Shakti, a wonderful exercise, which even our enemies and some of our neighbors commented very favorably, because he proved that from any part of this country, any corner of this country, within 24 hours, he will be able to shift all the assets that is required if the exigency arises, to any other part which requires that kind of an assistance. In other words, proving that we have a very nimble Air Force. The Air Force is fully geared up to meet any situation, and the Air Chief demonstrated it last year during the Operation Gagan Shakti, which was held all over the country. So the Air Force today has proven its ability. With Rafale, it is only going to increase manifold.
Pratham and Radha, no questions on Rafale?
I want to ask one more question about the Navy. Because you know, actually, India needs improvement in naval power. So, what are your views about that?
Well, I think quite a few of naval assets have also been added. The new ones are being added in. Our bases are being strengthened. In fact, quite a lot of activity is happening all along the coast in order to strengthen our naval bases. The Navy Chief also has spoken about it recently. You're quite aware that we have now quite a lot of what you call logistic support agreements agreed with several countries. We have partnership countries from whom we share information about vessels which are moving, vessels of interest, and maritime information also. So Navy has quite a lot for their presence. Of course, there's a need now that we have a greater emphasis given for Indo-Pacific. Now we are just not dealing with the Indian Ocean, we are talking about Indo-Pacific area. But over and above this, what I would want to play and emphasize on here is we are seen as the first respondents in this area. Anyway, you are aware that recently when there was tsunami and earthquake which hit the coast of a part of Indonesia, ours was the first set of ships which reached there with medical relief.
Well, Pratham, all questions answered. This is
Yes,
a
ma'am.
Raksha Mantri who has her feet on the ground and her eyes on the ball. Thank you very much, Radha and Pratham, for joining us. Dr. Sunita joins us next from Panjim in Goa. Dr. Sunita, you know, you heard the first two callers. Nobody had a question to ask on Rafale. What is your question, Dr. Sunita? Is it on Rafale? Is it on the defense preparedness of our country? What would you like to ask Raksha Mantri?
First of all, I would say Namaste, Defense Minister Ji.
Namaste.
Jai Hind.
Namaste.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Yes, my question is about the Rafale procurement deal. We have been deeply pained by the way Mr. Rahul Gandhi is continuously using foul, abusive language against our elected Prime Minister. And this agony is leading us to sometimes sleepless movements. My question to you, Madam Defense Minister, is that why is there not a defamation suit filed against him for defaming the name of the nation and the Prime Minister?
Correct. Very good question. Dr. Sunita wants to know why haven't you filed a defamation suit against Rahul Gandhi?
That's exactly the kind of pain and disappointment I suffer. I feel bad, not just me, many of my colleagues, all of us feel for the country's Prime Minister to be abused like this. And I suppose that was one of the reasons where I took the chance to explain that after my speech on Rafale, where I explained everything in the parliament. I did take it up. But on the specific question, I'd like to respond to the opposition leader in his capacity as an opposition leader, and I focus myself on answering the questions rather than look at why can't I rush to the court to have a defamation filed. I purely deal with it as an opposition leader for whom I give facts, I give the truth, and I explain things.
Well,
the rest is left.
That's a graceful Raksha Mantri, and I want to ask you, you know, you are a woman in the job, and sometimes that gets emphasized more by people who are looking at your position. You know, if there have been Raksha Mantris before, and there is another Raksha Mantri that this country has, why is your being a woman, number one, being made such a big deal? And why? And what do you personally feel? What did you feel when Rahul Gandhi made this statement? Many, you know, starting from the Prime Minister, your party president and other colleagues in your cabinet have responded. But I want to ask you, not just as Raksha Mantri, but as a woman who's competent enough to be a Raksha Mantri of this country, what did you feel when Rahul Gandhi made this statement at a rally in Rajasthan saying कि प्रधानमंत्री एक महिला के पीछे छुप रहे हैं?
I have, to be frank with you, a very mixed feeling about it, because that literally shows a certain mindset which prevails all over the country, and I was surprised that Rahul Gandhi, as the president of a big party, spoke that language. In fact, not just in my context after becoming Raksha Mantri, but even earlier, I have said this very, very many times. The way in which we speak, man or woman sometimes, perpetrates, without us knowing sometimes, a certain stereotype of woman and man. And the language is what I normally address, saying, you know, like frequently in the north we hear, are you wearing bangles, as an expression. In the south you have some equivalents like that. So the language has become so infused with these kind of things which are gender insensitive. And I normally do tell people that one has got to be very conscious that you don't promote such language. But here, my worry is and therefore I took objection to it, is if I were to be a male, would Rahul Gandhi have had a reason to say the Prime Minister is hiding behind the Raksha Mantri? He said it only because I'm a woman. Would he have had this temptation to say, if there was a male saying, you're hiding behind a woman? That's an attitude problem. And if I were to say that in many parts of India, particularly in the rural areas, that's not to absolve the urban, our language has become so infused, we say this without even realizing.
Would you want to hit back?
No, 1 minute, I'll just finish this. So you would probably speak like this without or unknowing or being insensitive that you're talking without sensitivity to gender. But here is somebody who was brought up in a family which was highly exposed to the world, the society, India's suffering, India's whatever. What great letters from the Naini prison Jawaharlal Nehru had written to Indira, the daughter. And in that family, there's somebody who speaks like some village sitting under a tree, old man, who I should not blame, who speaks like that because that's how he's been brought up. But you've not been brought up like that, I'm told. How could that kind of a mindset come in your mind? Leave alone you're aspiring to be the Prime Minister, but I thought you had a very different upbringing. Shocking.
Shocking, says Nirmala Sitharaman. Okay, we have two more callers who are calling in. Sahil calling in from Srinagar and Sumit calling in from Gurugram. Sahil, coming across to you first. You have a question for Raksha Mantri Nirmala Sitharaman. What's your question?
Yes, good afternoon. Sorry, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Yes, thank you very much for, giving me chance to ask some questions. I have specific 2-3 questions. Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. Ma'am, why did you choose Reliance? That's the best question I need to ask this time because I have been following this story. I have been following this Rafale deal very closely since I am a civil service aspirant. One thing that confuses me the most, why did you choose Reliance Defense when the fact is there was one more company, HAL? Please answer this question.
Shall I answer now?
Yeah.
I don't know who's chosen Reliance, it's not Government of India. The Government of India has not chosen anybody because what we are doing now is in the place of 18 flyaway aircrafts, fighter aircrafts, which the UPA wanted to buy but didn't end up buying, we have now decided not just 18 but 2 times 18, which is 36, fitting enough for 2 squadrons, fighter aircrafts to be brought in, and therefore our concern was through an intergovernmental agreement to get 2 squadrons worth 36 fighter aircrafts, and that's what we've done. The story begins and ends there. That's where it's all over. Now, for the rest, we have just issued an RFI for which, through the strategic partnership route, we want to find people who will want to come, find a joint venture or decide on a partnership, and then the process will commence to produce the rest of them. Now, in this purchase of 36, for everything, every 100 rupees that you give from Government of India to buy these aircrafts, we, as per the offset guidelines, expect this OEM, that is the original equipment manufacturer, in this case, for instance, Dassault and one other company, they have to bring in 50 rupees to India to buy things or buy services or invest in some group, about which we will get to know, and once we get to know, then I'll be able to say with whom that 50 rupees for each 100 rupees that we have spent on them is being either used for buying something or buying a thing or buying a service or investing. So based on newspaper reports, I can't comment with whom they are going for that offset expenditure that they have to do. It's not production of an aircraft. It's not at all a production because everything that we are buying in this 36 is coming from there. Nothing is being produced off the 36 in this country, just as nothing was to be produced off that 18 under the UPA. It is for the rest of it. And that is a totally separate thing on which nothing has happened as yet except for us having issued an RFI. I hope that's clear.
Well, you've answered the question head on. Sumit also on the show with us on Frankly Speaking from Gurugram. Sumit, what's your question?
नमस्कार मैम।
Namaskar.
मैम मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि हमारे अभी 31 स्क्वाड्रन्स हैं और राफेल के 2 स्क्वाड्रन्स आ रहे हैं, तो अभी और रिक्वायरमेंट है 45 स्क्वाड्रन्स की। तो अगर एनडीए गवर्नमेंट नेक्स्ट 5 ईयर्स के लिए आती है तो उसका क्या प्लान होगा हमारी एयरफोर्स फ्लीट को रिवाइव करने के लिए, क्योंकि 300 फाइटर्स मिक्स सीरीज के हैं जो 3rd जनरेशन के हैं सिर्फ, तो कैसे आप रिप्लेस करने का प्लान कर रहे हैं?
That is why I said we are getting 36 aircrafts now, but we've already issued the RFI for the manufacture of the rest of them. What rest will be, we don't know. It depends on who the original equipment manufacturer is going to be after the RFI matures to become a contract. And that is through the strategic partnership. So they will have to come and produce it in India. Other than that, of course, the HAL is also continuously producing Tejas, which is also a combat aircraft. It's also a training worthy aircraft. Even that will continue. Sukhois are being produced in India, the Sukhoi Mk1, and that is also going to continue production. So our fleet will get refurbished with all these aircrafts.
वो पूछना चाह रहे हैं अगले 5 साल में कोई और मेजर परचेजेस हैं जिसपे राजनीति आज से शुरू हो जाए?
नहीं, आरएफआई तो इश्यू हो गया है, उसके प्रोसेस आगे बढ़ते चलते हुए विल बाय न्यू एयरक्राफ्ट्स, बट दैट प्रोसेस विल हैव टू बी ओपन, ट्रांसपेरेंट, स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप।
सो यू आर नॉट बैकिंग ऑफ, आप डर नहीं रहे हैं राफेल कंट्रोवर्सी से?
नहीं, बिल्कुल। ये 36 में पहला एयरक्राफ्ट सितंबर इस साल आएगा।
Well, ladies and gentlemen, viewers, that's Raksha Mantri live on Frankly Speaking. It's a very special edition of Frankly Speaking, and our newsroom is flooded with phone calls from all our viewers. We'll take a short break. We are getting calls, so we'll take your calls after this very short break. So keep calling in, keep asking your questions, because, ladies and gentlemen, the government has explained, and here you have the opportunity to ask your question, your doubt to the Raksha Mantri directly. Use your phone, use your Twitter and send us your questions. Taking a short break, back very soon with Raksha Mantri Nirmala Sitharaman. Welcome back to the special edition of Frankly Speaking, and we have Raksha Mantri live, Nirmala Sitharaman, who's on the show and taking questions from our viewers tonight. And before I go across to my next caller, Nirmala ji, I want to ask you this question. You said that Rahul Gandhi's statement was almost as if it was coming in from somebody not really from the background we've known Rahul Gandhi to come from, but from appearing to be somebody in a village sitting under a tree who doesn't have access to that kind of education or exposure. I still want to persist with my question. Would you want to say something to Rahul Gandhi directly for having questioned a woman's capability?
Well, it's below dignity to comment. It's honestly below dignity for me to comment on it.
You let it pass? No response?
Well, I've said this. It's below one's dignity to even respond to this kind of a comment.
That's very different to hear from a politician at a time when politics has really hit a new low in terms of name calling. But Nirmala ji, there have been attacks that have been made by his party people. In fact, Divya Spandana, who is the head of the social media cell at one level or the other for the Congress party, has said that even you have connections with political family, you are married into a political family, and you're no ordinary person. So, not to make such a big deal about the fact that I'm from an ordinary background, the statement that you made in Parliament. What would you say to that?
If I've said it's below my dignity even to respond to a boss.
Okay. below her dignity to respond to the boss, least of all Divya Spandana. Anand joining me from Hyderabad. Anand, what's your question?
Thank you, Navika. Good evening, Madam Defense Minister.
Good evening.
I really appreciate this outreach, providing an opportunity for any citizen to interact with you. Coming to my question, I am confused with all the feelers that come from various stakeholders from within HAL. The HAL chief says something while the employee union leaders say something else, all of which is muddling the understanding of the future of HAL. What is your response to such statements from HAL?
I don't know which statement you're referring to.
The specific
So,
statement that Rahul Gandhi also spoke about, the fact that you said there are 1 lakh crore worth of orders in the pipeline. Now, it's not orders that are on paper with HAL. These are not monies that have gone to HAL. So Rahul Gandhi says that you've misled the country. And I've seen a cartoon in a newspaper which says, if the orders are in a pipeline, then votes from the people of this country are also in a pipeline for the BJP.
Well, I don't think that's the right way of interpreting. I'm not against cartoons, please, any number, welcome. But let's understand, the government is not like an individual, you or me, which can take from its pocket or from the purse and then give it like that. When I said what I've said, and next day I've even given a statement to say what I've said about HAL as regards the orders, is absolutely true. And I've stated it again in the House with a written statement. I don't want to go into explaining the process, but everything that which is taken as a decision and announced like this in the House is definitely going through the process and for them to get the money.
Why are there discordant voices from HAL coming in?
I don't know which are the discordant voices. Retired employees who think that things are not moving, I don't disrespect their views. Retired employees are important. They bring in a lot of expertise with which they worked, and then after that do retire and understand the institution. So when they speak, it's important, I respect that. But the matter of fact is, when we say processes, like if I clear the file today, even then it does take its own due time, and everyone in the government in HAL knows about it. After my clearing, I'm well within my right to say I've cleared it, because it will, once the due processes are followed, the money will fall into the account of HAL for them to do, one thing. And second, because the caller has asked as to what is the matter about HAL. HAL does get the orders. They have a very captive consumer in the form of Indian Air Force. Army and Navy also give them orders. They are producing some of the regularly used helicopters. They are servicing all the Air Force's requirements. They are also producing in different units, like in Nasik, they produce Sukhoi. All of us want to do things with HAL, but I've also raised quite a few questions, which I'm trying to sort out. I'm trying to do my best to get that sorted out. It is a fact, and this is not to decry. That is why I also quoted Sri Mallikarjun Kharge's PAC report, very clearly saying as to why the production of Tejas is getting delayed. Simply just HAL may not be at fault, but HAL together with, let us say, ADA, HAL together with Air Force, all of them will have to expedite the process. But it's a fact that even when orders were given between 2006 and 2010 for additional Tejas to be produced, their production annually is only 8. You imagine, even if you gave orders for 40, how long will it take for them to scale up and produce and give us? So we have to attend to HAL's requirement in terms of better infrastructure, giving them more capacities, more scaling up prospects, and so on. So, whilst questions being asked about HAL's finances may not be wrong, I'm answering, I've given the right figures. There are many more issues about HAL which I want everybody to understand. The complexity with which we have to deal with an institution like HAL, which has skills to do a lot of good work, but yet the fact is, it costs more to produce the same thing in HAL than anywhere else. I've given you 2 examples. In the case of Rafale, HAL's demand was that they needed 2.5 times more man hours to produce, which Dassault didn't think it would work for them. Similarly, I've given you the example of importing Sukhoi from Russia and making Sukhoi in India. Indian made Sukhois are at least 45% more than the imported Russian version. Now, after all, as Raksha Mantri and as Government of India, all of us will have to be concerned about giving business to HAL. But if I want Sukhoi, I am paying Indian taxpayers money. Won't I be questioned by CAG saying, why do you have to buy it from here, which is Indian company, all right, but you're paying 45% more of public money. Would you pay it to some other person?
Anand, does that answer your question?
So there are complex issues which we have to address. We are trying to address. So no good just cherry picking and saying today the business is like that. It's all due to Modi. I'm sorry, Modi is also giving solutions. Can we talk about that also?
Well, yes. Mr. Rahul Gandhi should engage in a comprehensive plan for the entire defense sector rather than just talking about a few questions.
One more thing about HAL, Navika. This year they had the highest turnover. How does turnover happen? Highest turnover happen without businesses being given to them. They are getting business. Yes, but we need to give them more. I'm not denying that.
All right. Atul joining us from Noida. Also joining us is Suraj from Mysuru. But first, let me go across to Atul. Yes, Mr. Atul.
Hello.
What's your question?
Good evening, Doctor. Good evening, Defense Minister.
Good evening.
Ma'am, my question is that initially when Rahul Gandhi started this particular allegation on the government regarding Rafale, the counter-attack from the government was very lenient. I think the counter-attack right now is appropriate. Don't you think it was a delayed response from the government? Had it government replied initially with the same figures and facts, I think Rahul Gandhi could have just stopped all these things currently in the initial time in the parliament also.
Good question, Atul. Do you think you delayed the kind of combative response that you are giving now? Have you delayed it? Did you ignore the questions on Rafale in the beginning?
You don't go into a combative posture right at day one, do you? In everything you tried reasoning, you tried telling things, you tried explaining.
But have you allowed the narrative to set up against you in Rafale? That's the question, I think.
Well, we are now putting the facts out. I can't say each one of us can have our own perspective and I can't question that. But certainly I'm giving the facts now.
All right. Suraj from Mysore on the line. Yes, Suraj, what's your question?
Hello, Navika. Hello, Nirmala Sitharaman ji.
Hello, Suraj.
Hello.
I'm really proud of you and even my current government, the Modi ji. You all have made India proud and have reached India to the heights.
Thank you.
You don't think the Rafale controversy has taken anything away from the Modi government?
No, not at all. But my question is, like, Nirmala Sitharaman ji or even the total government has failed to connect with the people. Because I think Nirmala Sitharaman ji speaks in English, but I think most of the country people are illiterate or do not understand the language. So I think it's a miscommunication, but I truly believe our government. So I think it's a miscommunication, and even Congress, it's tried to speak complete Hindi. I think they are properly able to communicate, but they are saying utter lies. But
oh, you don't know, Nirmala Sitharaman ji, the Raksha Mantri can speak very good Hindi. She can speak many languages. You know, you don't have to really worry about communication skills. Nirmala ji, आप जब spokesperson हुआ करती थी, हम बहुत सी भाषाओं में बात करते थे, हिंदी में बात करते थे आपसे.
Absolutely. And I understand, is this caller from Mysore?
Yes.
I can understand because, and I quite take your point, the communication now will have to be in various Indian languages, and BJP's Karyakarta all over the country are geared to do that. I may be the one who speaks only in English or probably in Telugu and Tamil. I love to speak in Kannada too. My Hindi is tutti-putti, but still all of us will be talking in the respective languages. I take your point.
Say something in Tamil to our viewers.
No, but
from
he is
Chennai.
He is from Karnataka.
So speak to him in Kannada.
My Kannada is not really all that strong.
So you tell him that you know, as far as Rafale is concerned, there is no hanky panky.
Rafale has nothing hanky-panky. I can say that in English, but hanky-panky, I don't know how to say that in Kannada. Gottaita? Suraj Avare? I think he's not in line.
Suraj, you got that?
Yes, madam.
That
Thank
was
you.
specially for you in Kannada. Hope it answers your questions. And coming back to this entire issue, many are saying that the bill that has been brought in for 10% quotas for reservation for economically backward upper caste is a diversionary tactics, because the government was in hot water over Rafale, so you've tried to distract attention away from it.
Government was in hot water on Rafale. We have all the facts and truth on our side. Why will we be in hot water? Now, I would think the Congress party is in hot water with Christian Michel saying things, and also with us putting all the facts on Rafale out openly and saying, ask me any number of questions, I'm willing to answer. But no, it's not a diversionary tactic. But the importance of a historic decision like that, and the silent way in which the Prime Minister has worked together with the concerned ministries, work the details out, and then go for a cabinet decision after interministerial consultation, and then bring it, and mind you, it's a constitutional amendment, and then bring it to both the houses, just shows how clear, determined leadership this country has in him. That's the kind of thing which every party wanted. Congress Party's manifesto 2014 had it. And earlier, they knew about it, but didn't do anything in their solid 10 years between 2004 and 14. Within 5 years, here's this government doing something which will benefit all the poor people. And this is just not dealing with one community. Any poor who needs this kind of a support is going to get it, irrespective of caste, irrespective of religion, because over and above that which is reserved for the SCs and STs and OBCs, without cutting that down, without affecting it, and as it is, you know, SCs and STs can also appear, and that's a good move, which exists even now, can also appear under the general category. So even that has not been touched with. They can still appear in the general category too, over and above the reservation which they have. So giving 10% for the others who are economically backward, which may result eventually also to certain kind of social backwardness, that's what we want to address. And it's a daring reform, very good measure, long awaited.
All right, we have two more callers calling in, Sumit from Noida and Sri Ganesh from Coimbatore. Sumit, what's your question?
Yeah. Hi, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Yeah. So, actually, my question is regarding the Rafale prices. So, because the whole controversy started around that. So, I heard you and Arun Jaitley, sir, in the parliament for the same, and all the facts got clear. So, what I understood, there are two prices. One is for basic aircraft and one is for fully loaded aircraft.
What's your question?
Sorry. Yeah. My question is that for basic, as Sir Arun Jaitley sir described, that for basic aircraft we can declare the prices, but for fully loaded aircraft we cannot declare the prices, right? So my question is, since Rahul Gandhi is asking all the prices and they are saying it's cheaper, from their deal it was cheaper. So why is not government asking? Not the government. I mean the. We are not asking Rahul Gandhi why what was the price of fully loaded aircraft in their time, because he is quoting only the basic aircraft prices, not the fully loaded aircraft prices.
All right. Here the response from Raksha Mantri.
That's right. You're right in saying that he's constantly quoting his time, UPA government's time's basic aircraft price, but even that is wrong, because what is in the paper is different from after all the escalation cost is added to it and the exchange rate variations are taken on board. And if that first aircraft of theirs were to arrive at a particular time, the price wouldn't have been that so-called 526 that he's talking about. It would have been far higher. And that is what we are calculating and telling, that UPA's contract would have led to 736 or whatever I've quoted, 700 plus price, which is the price after escalation and exchange rate variations. So if he has to compare the basic aircraft price 700 plus is the price that we have to compare with the 670 that we are talking about. They are not disclosing with the weapon systems, obviously because they didn't even have a deal in the first place. Now all of us are forgetting the constant comparison is with a non-deal. And when it is with the non-deal, isn't the whole thing itself unfair? If you bought even one aeroplane, one fighter aircraft, then compare that one fighter aircraft's price which you bought, it's reached India, and then the Air Force is using, you compare that with what I am buying now, things are fair. There was no deal. But
जो
look at the
खरीदा ही
irony.
नहीं तो फिर comparison क्या? That's
Look
the
at the
point
irony.
Nirmala Sitharaman is making. Well, Shri Ganesh from Coimbatore. Yes, Mr. Shri Ganesh, what's your question?
Namaste, Raksha Mantri ji. I'm Sri Ganesh calling from Coimbatore.
Yes,
Hello.
go on, ask your question.
Hello, Shri Ganesh. Yes, please.
Namaste, madam. Good evening to you. Very nice that you have been handling the issue very talentedly. And we are all very proud that Tamil Nadu Defense Minister is handling things so seriously and so well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, madam. But one thing we want to just understand, will Dassault not reveal whatever information they are providing to us to another customer of theirs at a later date? We are always telling there is a secret clause in this deal. But nothing, all the add-ons that provided in the aircraft will not be divulged. But will it not be let known to the other customers about what they have supplied to us? And would it not be better on their part to let us know what are the add-ons that have been coming along with the system for which you are paying such a high price?
Just for me to understand your question, you're saying, why don't we disclose the price of the add-ons?
Yes, madam.
That's where the whole idea is. Not just you, not just
Rahul. The
Rahul.
ambiguity also arises among the common man.
But do you want to tell Pakistan as well what's loaded on?
We may not be telling, but Dassault might tell it another day that we have brought all this to India. Would you like something more on that? It's always there. It's always there. There's no secrecy in business.
All right,
Dassault is
all
no
right,
secret.
all right. Got your question, Shri Ganesh ji.
The agreement, intergovernmental agreement, does not allow neither India nor the manufacturer to reveal the prices of the weaponry, because it means it has an implication on national security. So if I don't say, it doesn't mean my seller can say it. It's an agreement between two.
It's been the same procedure in
For
the
everybody.
Congress government as well, in
For
the UPA
everybody.
government.
Yes.
We have several deals of Mr. A.K. Antony, who was the then defense minister, where he's replied to Parliament saying that he cannot disclose the
Absolutely.
prices.
It is our national interest. So if
All
I
right.
don't say it, it doesn't mean the seller can sell it. It's my national interest anyway.
All right. All right. We have two questions. The newsroom is flooded. I beg your indulgence. Please stay on with me. But I have two questions from my Twitter friends. Sunil T. Thakur, who says, is the government and BJP dealing with Rahul's falsehoods effectively?
That's for the people to judge. I think I will relentlessly deal with it. I will continue to deal with it. I will sit wherever people want me to sit to answer every question. And that, if, like the Prime Minister today said in a speech, you can wake up somebody who's sleeping, but somebody who wants or who's pretending to sleep, any attempt to wake him up
Can't
will
do
not.
anything about that. Ramesh Parakat also has a question, and he says, why aren't BJP MPs moving a privilege notice against Rahul Gandhi for spreading falsehoods? You've answered that question before, but that's a question from Ramesh Parakat on Twitter. Soham, our last caller, joining in on this broadcast. Yes, Soham, what's your question to the Raksha Mantri?
Hello, Nirmala ji, and also I deeply
Hello.
congratulate and greetings Nirmala Sitharaman ji, or People's Raksha Mantri.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I am really proud of you and I heartily congratulate you for the full fury speech in the Lok Sabha, throwing out and slamming with Rahul Gandhi, dealing with the point-by-point details of the Rafale deal.
Thank you.
What's your question?
Ma'am, I am damn sure that NDA is truly felicitated by the Rafale deal and this would help Modi come back to power. My question is, how will Rafale deal help you politically?
Well,
You personally, Nirmala Sitharaman, will Nirmala Sitharaman ji politically gain something power within the BJP?
All right. Heard your question, Sonji. Now let her answer.
well, politically, I think it will certainly help the BJP. It will help Prime Minister Modi because a false campaign was used to defame the Prime Minister, to call him names, to falsely accuse him of having ripped the government money and given it to some private party, all of which have been proved wrong even by the Supreme Court. I think now we will be on a better wicket to stand up and say, I'm sorry, not just your campaign was full of falsehood, but it looked as if you purposely whipped this controversy out because you thought this government has run without any corruption allegation for 5 years. You cannot
Motivated
imagine.
charges by
Absolutely.
Rahul Gandhi. Well, Raksha Mantri, our newsroom is still buzzing. So can I have a promise from you that in the times to come, if the questions mount and if we get a lot of more questions and more viewers wanting this opportunity to ask you live questions, you'll come back to our studios.
Absolutely, without hesitation.
And answer the questions of the people of India.
Anytime.
Well, on that note, viewers, we have a promise. So if you have more questions, do keep writing in to us. Keep sending us your questions. And Raksha Mantri Nirmala Sitharaman has promised she will come face to face to answer your questions if you still have some more questions left to ask. Thank you very much, Nirmala ji. Thank you very much, Raksha Mantri. And thank you very much to all my viewers who've been watching this special edition of Frankly Speaking with Nirmala. Send us your comments and tweet to us on that hashtag, Frankly Speaking with Nirmala. Thank you. Good night.